Hey, Lord of the Rings fans, it's your boy, New Better, Do Better in the building with my wonderful co-host, as always, Callie Cosplay. What up, Callie? What's good? What's going
Hi,
on?
hi everyone. So happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. We are back, and this is going to be our kind of first real episode of the season. We are back. We are back from our long hiatus. We are back with a new episode of Voices of Arda. I couldn't tell you the number of the episode. That's Callie's job, and I don't want nothing to do with it because I can't remember it. But we have a great guest in the building right now. I'm going to let him be introduced by the one, the only Callie Cosplay. Callie, who do we have with us today?
All right, so we have actually a newly added member, someone that we welcomed into the group late of last year, I would want to say. So you maybe haven't had a chance to get to know him, but this is now officially your chance to get to know him. Please tell us your name.
David the Ñoldo.
Yeah.
Excellent.
What's up, David? What's good, man? Welcome to the podcast. You know what I'm saying? We've interviewed you before, and it went very well. And people should definitely know who you are now. He is the Noldo that speaks in Quenya. Yeah, he's defying Thingle's orders, and he's speaking in Quenya with everything. And
That's
so,
right.
he has a vast knowledge of the Lord of the Rings. Every time we go somewhere, he's the trivia guy who's just he's going to be right at that upper echelon of knowledge and theories. I love his theories and his the way you pick apart the stories and the characters and their inner workings. I love that. Whether it's the Thingol's disdain for the dwarves and how he treats them and his how he even treats the Noldor when they come in the Middle Earth and how we disagree on how his motivations on that and stuff like that. It opens your mind up to, hey, what are these characters' true motivations? Am I missing something? Is there something that they're seeing that I'm not seeing, or vice versa? So it makes for great conversations, and I love that your mind goes there. So
David, before we move on too far, for the people who are listening to audio only of this podcast, could you please spell for us your name or your handle or like how we mostly find you on social media?
Yeah, so it's David and then THE and then NG as in gamma OLDO. So it's it gets to the original way that Tolkien was kind of wrote the name of Noldor is this what's I think it's the voice velar is the name of the linguistic term for like the N with the tilde above it. But it's not pronounced like how it is in Spanish, where it's like like mañana. It's not that type of N, but it's
mhm.
a
Okay.
much more narrow, like NG sound that you kind of get in some of the other languages. So I think the description or the example word he gives in his writings is in the traditional way that you would say the word sing it would be that way, but it becomes much more difficult. And I still have trouble with actually pronouncing it the right way. So,
See what I'm
I
talking
think
about, guys? Super nerd shit right now. This is levels of
we
nerddom that you're not prepared for.
David, in your words, what would you say your Tolkien account is about or like what you focus on? What's your
um,
thing?
I mean, as mentioned, some of part of it is with Quenya, part of it is about, you know, theorizing about the lore, but
Mhm.
also, and that comes in different shapes, right? So like it could be what more, comparative literature analyses, like how I did, I think it was last summer, kind of showing how some of the parallels between Tolkien and even like manga and anime, and even like mythology, but then also stuff like, analyzing even just the top chapter of like, say, Truden Turambar and showing how it kind of deals with comedy and tragedy, how it's kind of the opposite of the Baron and Luthien chapter that we had, just that, kind of precedes it, so to speak, in terms of the great tales.
Yeah.
And then also you get into, like Ñuvetta said, like theorizing about like the motivations behind characters as well as, and that kind of, I guess you can kind of say it features into the secondary world texts, right? These are these framing devices, secondary world authors writing the texts and kind of getting behind that, trying to do some source criticism as far as, how did Quentin Noldo or Pencaloth know what went on there in Lestinore or Doriath when he was born in Nevrast and then spent pretty much all of his upbringing in Ondolinde or Gondolin. And he would have never met a dwarf. He would have never had any interaction with anything going on. So those type of theories and hypotheticals and trying to investigate that.
Yeah, man, those are a big part of uh your channel and what you do, and you do it excellent. Do us a favor and tell us the house that is behind your head.
So this is, of course, the house of Ardacano Finwë Nola Finwë, the Ice Treader, the Cold Star, the thrice risen Cold Star, the God Wounded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how he does. He gets into it. It's phenomenal, man. He is like the pronouncer of the judgments, the dooms. He is the herald of Manway himself. You know what I'm saying? So he's the herald of Voices of Arda, David the Ñoldo. When he comes through with the names like that, that's dope, man. We're really glad to have you a part of our team. We couldn't make a better selection, man, to be a part of it, to spread your knowledge, your lore, and to add and accompany us, man, with what we do, man. I think we very well rounded with serious lore masters, comedy, levity, you know what I'm saying? We got cosplayers that, sometimes they get up here and they got the dope outfits on. We got trick quiz makers, hosts, everything you can think of. We kind of cover all facets, you know what I'm saying? So it's dope, man. We get to within there's nothing we don't cover. There's no topic we don't cover. Within the legendarium, and I think that's like phenomenal. I wanted to ask you a question now. This is a question that I wanted to come up with and kind of ask everybody who is a part of the Voices of Arda crew and so on and so forth, who gets interviewed by us. Now, the question we're going to ask you is, being that our name is Voices of Arda, and we all know the Yana Lindele is the singing of the music and the themes and the creation of the world. If you were one of the Ainur and you were singing a theme, what would you contribute or bring into the world of Arda?
Though the role was already taken back in the earliest writings, right? The Book of Lost Tales,
Hmm.
the role that Omar had back in the Book of Lost Tales, as far as, he, dealing with languages and, he invented the writing systems in that earlier forms of the Legendarium. So I think probably something like that would be aiming at like something to do with writing. I think overall would be the key emphasis that I'd want to do.
So you say
However that
some
can,
writing forms into existence and
yeah.
possibly some record keeping, which I could definitely see you being a record
Mhm.
keeper. Something in that. I don't want to compare you to Dairon,
No, no, no. More like Makalaude or
yeah,
Maglor. Closer to that. I'm more okay
more
with
like
that.
Maglor, maybe possibly Rumel,
Yeah, Rumil too. I'm fine with Rumil.
Well,
Rumel.
yeah.
Feanor and Dairon, we're gonna leave them alone. We're gonna leave
I mean,
them alone.
it's at least the
The language is,
the best, Feanorin that there is as far as being able to reject the doom at the end.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
David, did you do any Tolkien related projects in 2025, or like did you go to any of the meetups or the cons or the moots or the events?
Yeah, so the big one we did was Westmoot. Did New Betta was there, Pete Belmont was there, Samaria Leanne was there, Kaya K was there, and then Andy was there, I think, as far as that was everybody who was part of Voices of Arda. Who did Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con, and then kind of immediately after, um, probably in the June, we kind of started, at least because I'm based in Southern California.
Hmm.
So
Mm.
we started me and a couple other people within the community. Oh, I'm sorry. Kelly of the middle page, part of it as well as Miranda.
Yes.
Um, all of us started at Southern California, still Cali Quendi, Smile, that's part of the Tolkien Society. And so we had our first kind of like small launch at San Diego Comic Con, just like a meetup at a bar. We then, participated in a kind of a cidery. Was it the Hobbit Day Festival? But then we had our bigger event during Yule 2025 at that same cidery that, I think maybe over 100 plus people showed up.
Oh,
Whoa.
nice.
Alan of the Prancing Pony podcast was there, as well as Katie. So just overall huge turnout.
That's
And
awesome.
looking and hoping to do more with a smile. Just all of our schedules are so busy that right now that it's been hard to kind of get something on
It's
the calendar.
hard, isn't it? Yeah.
That's awesome,
Even
man.
scheduling things online with people who aren't local, but then scheduling things in person with people who are local.
The
All very
logistics,
complicated.
the logistics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
But
I'll
so worth it. So worth it when you make it work.
now
Oh, absolutely.
being that Westmood 2 is coming up, or the second annual Westmood 2026, whichever way you want to describe it. What are you looking forward to most for that Westmood coming up in a few weeks, actually?
I mean, of course, reunion with friends, right? That's always one of the biggest things, whether it be, before the thing even starts, doing karaoke, or even after everything's gone and we take a road trip. But meeting up and getting to know more like people who you've either met initially on the online spaces, and just continuing that friendship, and doing that even with people who are new or like other
Yeah,
academic scholars and fans who show up at Westmove. I think that's probably one of the focuses this year too, is like people who I'm in a Tolkien writing workshop, and or research and writing workshop, and so meeting and actually talking in person with some of these like scholars who are doing important Tolkien work, will be very interesting, really fun to get to do.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great space to be in to do that, to find those people, the new people. I did it last year. I met a ton of people that I hadn't met before, and the camaraderie that comes of it. I went to a lot of events last year in Kentucky, and we had a great time on our road trip, and it's just it was phenomenal. So that is absolutely a joy of being able to go to these things. Finding the new people to get along with, and then meeting those people that you've met on the internet, but you haven't met in person, and then just being able to pour out to them your love for Tolkien and see their love. You can see it in their eyes. You know what I'm saying? So, but with that being said, we when I went to uh, when I went to Westmoot last year, one of the biggest points that were there were not just the speakers, but also the artists, and they had a little artist gallery. Now, in your opinion, who is your favorite or the best Lord of the Rings uh, artist that creates these spectacular backdrops in which we can see and envision the things we've been reading all this time?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Like I have like different scenes that are my favorite, right? So like
Nice.
one that comes to mind is Ted Naismith's doing the Rainbow Clef, the Cirith Niniac or
Yeah.
Niniac, what it's called. He has it was used on the cover of one of Verlin Flieger's book, Their Interrupted Music, that I was just finished reading this weekend. And I love that one. But then, I like his for more like landscape geography paintings, right? But then when it comes to more like characters, what is their name? There's an artist on Instagram and they do, you know, more ethnically diverse characters
Hmm.
from the Legendarium. These are not just within Lord of the Rings, but within deeper cuts as far as, the Silmarillion and, the histories of Middle Earth. And I love it. It's actually so cool to see,
Gotta
like,
put me on to that, man.
yeah, I'll definitely send them to you. Um, Seeing that is incredible because obviously it's underrepresented in Tolkien artwork. And so seeing that, reflection of either like people who look like ourselves or look like family members or friends and all that is something huge and trying to get more people into it. Um, in addition to that, there's another artist back in, I want to say the 70s, and his name was I want to say it was Sergei Yukimov. And so he kind of did more kind of traditional East Orthodox type of illuminated artwork.
Hmm.
It looks very much like kind of like religious iconography type work, but it looks so cool and to see it interpreted that way. So like it has somehow like Gandalf with kind of like that traditional, I forget the name of the halo within medieval artwork, but it has that. There's one of him like versus the Witch King, where it's just the Witch King with the skull and like the
Mm.
floating crown.
Yes, sir.
And there's one of Aragorn as Tar Elessar that's really cool that I have saved on my phone. Absolutely love.
I still got to go with my boy Donato right there. You know what I'm saying?
I
So.
I, I do love Donato's work. His
I
is
love Donato's work, man. He's probably my favorite. That I still that painting of Hurin over Gondolin is just so, it's what I've always envisioned. So that's probably why I gear more toward his work. And it's just so phenomenal. And he's such a nice guy. So definitely shout out to Donato. You know what I mean?
I will say the other one I did forget, and it is more like it's weird because it is a very, very well illustrated and like artistic. So I don't want to do it any disservice, but the imagination to it is just so weird and bizarre that I love it is Roger Garland's. It's usually that one if you've seen like the funky ass cover of the Silmarillion with Ulmo, how he's just
Mhm.
kind of like laying on his like hand like that outside of the sea. It looks so weird, but his artwork throughout like so many different installments, I love it. It's just so weird and like still detailed.
Nice. Nice. Good, great answer, man. Really extensive right there.
Very good answers. And what you said about the artist on Instagram who works a little bit more with different representations of the characters made me think that for the new media and the new movies and stuff, all the new things that we're getting coming up, it's my, I mean, now it's no longer a private hope, but that we will get some more representation. And I don't know, how it's gonna be a fight the whole way along, but like I would love for us to make up for even like just to like make up for the lack of representation we've had so far, right? But I know
No,
that that's that's a big ask
hon-
maybe.
honestly, I hope that they actually do Laurafindale or Glorfindel like they did the Magic the Gathering card, that he is
Hmm.
black. Like if they were able to do that, I'm like, yes, actually, like take the
So was
actual chance that
Círdan, I
it's
think, right? Yeah.
yeah, and actually
Aragorn.
take the chance to actually, make one of the elves who survive, who's not just a created for the show character, that is a primary character that fans would recognize in the show. I think that's ultimately what I'd really like to see the most. Like I love Arondir, I love Disa, and I I think because especially with the elves, right? Because oftentimes when like the Tolkien fandom, it's like, oh yeah, it's fine if you make, the Haradrim if you make them black, but then you can't make any of the high elves black for whatever bullshit
Doesn't
nonsense reason.
make any sense at all. You know. But we're getting there. We're pushing towards it, and I'm here to fight against the bullshit, the hate culture that's going on with with every show. This
Yeah,
is oh, this show is not. Shut up. Nobody even cares about what you're saying. And we just push through it. We ignore it, and we champion what's right with the show. What we love. You know, everything's not gonna be perfect, and everything's not gonna be nice. We talk shit about the shit that's bad, but we do it in a respectful way, as opposed to hate everything,
yeah,
hate everybody. Nobody can have this. Nobody can do this. Talking to be rolling in his grave. Shut up. You rolling in his grave, and you saying that, dummy.
yeah. And those are the same accounts that will probably do make AI like art
Yeah.
content and all that.
All of that nonsense.
Like speaking of other accounts that make AI content, new beta, tell them
Yes. Once
about the
again,
imposter.
we have an imposter
Oh,
Voices
great.
of Arda account. Make sure you report it. If it doesn't have the symbol, Callie, duck down for a second. If it doesn't have the beautiful symbol right here, Voices of Arda, it is not us. It is AI slop put together. You know what I'm saying? We got real content creators here. We don't use AI for anything. We believe in the blood, sweat, and tears of the artists, no matter what facet or medium it is. We want the people to be able to create, and I mean, AI is kind of a shortcut. No offense, but it is what it is. As AI is being used to record this thing.
It certainly has its uses, right? That's not a blanket statement.
Yeah,
It's very useful and it's very helpful for people who need accommodations or different accessibility options. Of course that it's a wonderful
yeah.
tool for those things, but
But people,
here in the Tolkien
yeah.
community, we are people first still, and
Yeah, we
we
champion
like to
people.
support
Like
each
if it's
other.
artwork, somebody commission somebody to make that. Commission somebody to write that information, not just have it, pulled from everywhere and then hodgepodge together. It's wrong a lot of those times when that happens. I look at those things and I'm like, wow, how is this wrong? And you're literally because they don't know anybody. They don't know the caveats and the changes, and they don't know any of that stuff like that. So anybody, making videos and stuff like that, it's like, come on, like use the person's real likeness and not some slop. Unless something tragic happens and it's like, okay, you have my blessing to use my likeness because this will be incorporate my likeness in the world where I'm not able to do that, or give me a chance to speak when I'm not able to do that. That's different with the person's permission, but most times it's not given and consent isn't given, so that's why we don't fuck with it. So it is what it is. Kelly, tell us about what you're wearing because it is hitting right now, and I'm mad that I don't have one of these shirts. You know what I'm saying? So I need to know what's going on right now. And
This
she
is
got her
the
name on it. She's
Voices of Arda. What do you jersey? Sports
I see
jersey.
it's a
And we
jersey,
got
like
a little thing on one shoulder, and I got my name on this other shoulder here.
That's
you know what I'm
dope.
There,
saying? It's
Kaylee
fire right there.
cosplay.
I was noticing that
Yeah.
when you moved out the way to show this logo, it's like, wait a second, is that it? Like, I don't know why I didn't notice the first time. I was like,
I've got
is
a
that,
logo on
yeah.
a logo here going on. I'm
Yeah.
very, very proud of this logo. Thank you, Vanna K Art.
Yes, man.
Nailed
Of
it. You
course.
nailed it with this. This is
Killed it. You
amazing.
nailed it. So what is next for you, David the Ñoldo? Like, what's next for you as far as content, things that you're going to be doing as far as, what I mean, whether it's going to be Westmove 3 or, any cons that you're going to, any projects you got going on. We know that you're a big writer of papers and you submit papers and they're super academic and you're like second to none with that, and your theories and your thought processes are welcome, and they're appreciated because you really go in. As we heard when you first jumped on here, we got right into it. So what's next for you?
The episode that I first appeared on Voice of Arda on, I talked about one of the papers I'd written. So that's still, I mean, it has been finally or like fully accepted as far as edits and all that. It's just a matter of when the publishers are able to not get around to it, but it's backlogged. It was supposed to be out this past spring of 2026, but my editor said, yeah, they're taking a bit. The house that's publishing it is taking a bit longer to do that. That's on Tolkien interacting with Black liberation theology of James H. Cone. So there's that on the lookout on my Substack. I'm trying to be more active on there. Also harder to for me to make the time to do that, where I kind of get into you know the name of Finwë, like what is the origins within Tolkien's text, and why I personally think that the meaning of the word Finn is an error in the index of the published Silmarillion, based off of Tolkien's publication history and the writings about it. But in addition to that, I'm writing about two plus papers at the moment. So one is an extended version of a TikTok video I did regarding the comparative or parallel historiography or the writing of history of the Tales of Numenor, specifically the Akallabeth in the published Silmarillion and the listed the kings and queens of Numenor in the Unfinished Tales, and how that parallels what's known as the Deuteronomistic history of the Hebrew Bible or the Tanakh or Old Testament.
Mhm.
So in our English translations of that, it's often kind of not as clear, or it's kind of a little bit more divided, but it's usually the books from like Joshua through Second Kings, how there's a running motif of the authors interpreting that history based off of, whether or not, the characters of the ancient Israelites followed the law, and that kind of becomes that interpretive frame. So it's
Yeah,
looking through that lens. And so I compare that to the histories of Numenor and using that, the Band of the Valar, to interpret how they interpret that history. The kings did good because, they gave up the scepter, they gave up the throne. But then we start to see the decline when they stop actually relinquishing that scepter and the throne, and how those parallel in a
try to hold on to that life,
yeah.
not giving it
So
when they're supposed to, and we could go into that, man. I actually would love for you to proctor my class, and when I do the second age class, and you could give you some great feedback to the students there, because we're on the same page with the second age.
yeah, most definitely.
Not so much the first.
Yeah, but not so much the first. Well,
You too.
that gets into one of the other. So I started off trying to write a paper, and I'm still going to do so on basically what's known as like a history from the bottom for the petty dwarves, right? So like all the texts we get about the petty dwarves are already going to be not from their own words, right? So we get it through whether it be Dear Havel in the Lay of the Children of Hurin, or we get it secondhand by the Sindar and their encounters with them, or other men's encounter. I forget the guy's name in the Children of Hurin, who was the son of one of the band of outlaws Turin was with,
Mhm.
and how he kind of runs off, and that becomes the source for Dear Havel. But basically, writing this history from the bottom of the petty dwarves using our own like real world historiographies, like how we know, like one of the books that I'm referencing is a Haitian scholar by the name of Michel Trulot, and his book Silencing the Past, and how he writes about types of silences throughout the production of history or production of historical documents or writing of historical texts, I should say. Basically, how there's going to be, even when it comes to what gets placed in the historical archives, even that is something that's conditioned upon, institutions that approve it, right? Or even scholars researching and reading about these historical events, them choosing what they deem is accepted or not, contributes to, silences within historical texts. So kind of using that as a larger frame to go into talk about petty dwarves, which then eventually turned into me trying to trace within the published Silmarillion, taking the published Silmarillion, it being written by a secondary world author, and when he wrote it or when they wrote it, uh, why they wrote it, but also who were their sources for when they wrote about events that they were not eyewitnesses to, and how that could be um, biased information, not intentionally by, say, the person who wrote it, but him taking those sources and not really giving as much of a critical eye to it. So again, so like the Sindar, right? So the Sindar fleeing Lesanore, Dordia, and then coming to the havens of Sirion, because that's where I believe most of the published Silmarillion, or what would become known for it, would have been written by Quentin Ñoldo or Pengalloth. Um, and so he would have been interacting with elves from there who are fleeing its ruin. And their most, immediate thoughts are about Feanorians and are about dwarves. So they're not going to have any positive or much positive things to talk about in regards to dwarves. So that's why, and so in the paper, I'm basically going to be arguing why they say that they ask for too much, right? And when it comes to the price that they started asking for the Cimmeral or the necklace so that they can get the Cimmeral, and how that's more of a construction of those refugees telling that story, as well as even reevaluating of Aule and Yavanna in regards to this whole cosmic scheme or kind of bigger theme about elves and dwarves inherently at odds with one another, and how that could be a production from, the Sindar coming to the Havens and, retelling these stories in order to then make it this, make it seem like this is something that's always gone on when it's not inherent. There may not even be inherent, since there is that secondary world author.
So that is what David the Noldo is all about,
So what he's
everybody.
all
And
about, what he does, you see that? Yeah, can't make that shit up. You know what I'm saying? So
all right, David. So any last words?
First off, not only thank you guys for having me on the interview, but also thank you for, bringing me into the fold of the Voices of Arda. Greatly appreciate it. Love everything about Voice of Arda ever since I first discovered KnewBetta back like right before the pandemic started, and then getting into it and seeing, like, I think it was the Voice of Arda Twitter that came out was when I first started following. So huge thank you for letting me be part of this. And also, I mean, kind of getting touching back on why I write or theorize about those things. I think these are, important, right? If we take Tolkien's essay on fairy stories about escape, the escape of the prisoner, not the flight of the deserter, I think it's important for us, especially when we live in a world where history is being erased, especially of marginalized people. And, it's being reworked and rewritten so that marginalization can still continue. I think it's important for us to question power structures that get to decide what type of histories and what tales get produced and told and all that. So that's ultimately where I'd like to focus when it
Yeah,
comes to
that's real.
Yeah,
That's real
that's real,
stuff
man.
right there. Yeah.
That's real. It has been a pleasure having you on, man. And yo, thank you for being you. Thank you for extrapolating all those wonderful thoughts in your mind. And we are looking forward to all the things that are coming out. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in Minnesota. And I can't wait. And so we're gonna have lots of things to share with Cali and lots of content. And yeah, we're gonna make big things happen this year, 2026 for the win for Voices of Arda. Let's go.
go.
All right, so everybody, please make sure you are absolutely following David, who we introduced in this episode here, and we'll see you next time with another Voices of Arda member.
All right. Peace.
Bye.